Hey guys, I'm here, and as you can see, we're talking about the... You can't see. Can you see now? Yes. We're talking about the Nexus 6P, the phone that was made by Huawei for Google back in 2015. So here's the montage, and I'll be right back. So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the montage. I really love making them, and I think it's gonna be a thing. Like in every new video, I'm going to be doing a montage at the beginning with some cool shots like this for like 30 seconds maybe. So let me know if you're excited, if you like this one, by dropping a comment and telling me you want more and a like on this video. So let's get talking about the Nexus 6P. In a world of Pixels and Note 8s and iPhone 10s, is the Nexus 6P that came out in 2015 still a good phone? Well, spoiler alert, it is. But how does it compare? First of all, this phone was made by Huawei for Google, and it's one of the two brothers released back in September 2015. It has a gorgeous 5.7-inch 1440p or QHD AMOLED display made by Samsung with a 71.4 screen-to-body ratio and Gorilla Glass 4 protecting it. The camera at the back is a 12-megapixel f2.0 shooter made by Sony with electronic image stabilization and a camera update from the Google 2 line. Brings portrait mode, or the fake blurred background that you see here, but this is from a camera on your phone without using any second cameras like the iPhone or the Galaxy Note 8. And as Android versions were being updated and Google Now on Tap evolved to what we now know as Google Assistant in smartphones, smart speakers, and probably a couple smart fridges out there, there were also a couple of fun tricks added to the camera app. For example, you can now double tap the power button to launch the camera from wherever you are, even if the screen is locked, or when you're in the camera app, you can double twist your wrist with the phone in your hand, obviously, and it will switch to and from selfie mode. Speaking of updates, one of the most excellent reasons to buy a phone that is #made by Google is the clean, pure Android and the fast updates. And through those updates, the Nexus 6P, that is still receiving updates even though it was released back in 2015, has had quite an overhaul in the settings, in the status bar, overall, and unfortunately I can't show you before and after because I don't have footage of before, I just have the after. But trust me when I say, from the original Marshmallow software that came with the phone, it has now updated to Android Oreo, which is the 6th, 7th, 8th version of Android. But what I can show you is a couple of things I find cool about it, one of them being gestures, which you can find under the system page, which is at the bottom of the settings app, and then under there you can find gestures. Kind of hard to find, but it's quite nice. In there you can enable lift the phone to check the time and notifications, which is what you see me doing in the intro montage. It's something like Samsung's always on display that was introduced with the Galaxy S7, but it's not always on, it's only when you lift the phone. In here you can also use the fingerprint sensor to pull down the notifications. As you can see here, I have also added a so-called launcher that has a bunch of apps that I have set, so I don't have to go to the home screen to jump from app to app. Now let's flip the phone around and look at the back. Here you will find the fingerprint sensor, which is a cool way to wake up the phone without pressing the power button, and it's admittedly one of the fastest ones I've seen. To the point where it won't even show you the lock screen, it will just go straight to the home screen if it recognizes the fingerprint. But even though the placement is extremely convenient when you're holding the phone, when it's laying down, it leaves you having to enter the password or draw the pattern to unlock the phone. Which is why I have set, beside my two index fingers, I have also set my middle finger so I can do this. Speaking of laying down, because the phone is elevated by the camera bump, there is a slight wobble when typing, especially on the left side, but thankfully the camera glass spans almost the entire back of the phone, and so the wobbling is not so severe, which is not something I can say about the Galaxy S7 Edge. If you've watched my video on NFC tags, if you haven't, you will know I might be one of the few that use NFC tags, let alone every day. But I do that with my Galaxy S7 Edge that has a glass back under the skin and under the case, but it works. But NFC doesn't work through metal, so what do? You put the NFC right smack next to the camera under the glass. Genius! And while we're at it, the bottom chin has a rubbery texture compared to the aluminum rest of the body, and it also has these icons and the Huawei logo right below the Nexus. The Nexus 6P came with a Snapdragon 810, 3 gigs of RAM, and either 32, 64, or 128 gigs of internal storage, which is not expandable with the micro SD card. I say came because, to my knowledge, there is no place you can buy it brand new unless you find a listing on eBay or something. Speaking of specs, this phone has a 3450 mAh battery that has been giving me a lot of problems. Even though some people have been having great experiences with it, I can't even get 2.5 hours of screen on time. And sometimes it will die for no reason at like 30%, but usually when it's around 15, if I turn on the screen, it will just shut down. Also, actually right before filming this, I was using it for about 15 minutes or so for casual social media use, Twitter and Instagram, you can follow me here, and it lost 10% and got pretty warm. I have tried getting a replacement, but the place I went said they were unable to find a new battery, and I think they got scared from watching a YouTube video on how to open it and saw that the glass on the top breaks easily, so they didn't want to do the replacement. That could be it. Which is unfortunate because I would love to be able to carry this thing as my daily driver without having to also carry a power bank. And while we're at it, the phone has a USB-C on the bottom, but also sports a headphone jack. Back when the USB-C and headphones were going along, Apple. In addition to the 3.5mm jack at the top, there is a great alternative for listening to music, which in this case is two front-firing speakers, one at the top and one at the bottom. Contrary to basically every other flagship phone that came out before or after it that has one speaker at the bottom. Which leads me to another problem I've been having, the speakers. It's not so much of a problem as a slight annoyance. At high volume, there is a clear distortion, and if you're listening to music and you're actually using the phone, every time you like tap or swipe, it's lagging. Which is, no, that's annoying. Also, I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the case, but the bottom speaker is louder than the top speaker. If you know, let me know in the comments down below. A textured power key and the volume controls are all located on the right side of the phone, which leaves the left side for the tray for the SIM card, which is without an SD card to keep it company, and you with a very awkward hand placement when you're trying to take a screenshot. If you have been following the news about the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL since their launch, I'm sure you must have heard of the blue shift of the screen. If you haven't, it's basically that if you're not looking at the phone directly, straight on, there's a blue shift when it's off axis. There have also been reports of the navigation bar leaving burn-in marks on the bottom of the screen. So to fix that, Google has pushed an update that dims the navigation bar after a little while when you're inside an app. And they have done so also on the previous phones that are still receiving updates, which is, in my case, the Nexus 6P. So if you're using an app, you will notice that the navigation bar dims after a second or so. While I have been using Nova Launcher almost religiously in most of my phones for a long time now, sometimes I go back to the original launcher the phone came with before I start missing some key features of Nova that make it the most beloved and customizable launcher on the Play Store, some of which I'm going to talk about shortly, but do let me know if you like a more in-depth video on Nova Launcher and how I set up my home screens, with a like and a comment down below. With Samsung, the default launcher was called TouchWiz, and I think now they changed it to UX, I'm not sure. And with Google and the Nexus line and now Pixel line, it was called the Google Now Launcher, now Pixel Launcher. While it was great having Google Now with just a swipe on the home screen, it is now 2018, and what Android 8.0 Oreo was promising was uniformity and a little more customizability. Now, I'm not saying that that was a complete lie, but we were promised these rounded, coherent icons. But what we get instead is this god-awful squares, and the closest thing we can get to something good looking is these teardrops. And to connect this with what I was saying about Nova, one of the key features is that you can download a custom icon pack and apply it. Closing in on the conclusion, not many things are wrong or off about this phone. It's a great phone, but the things that are lend themselves to some criticism. For example, the flashlight is basically green, but it's not good. Though this isn't the most scientific experiment and the most accurate one, I tried to keep it even and used the exact same camera settings. This comparison shows how the screen is not that bright in comparison and that it has a red tint to it. Also, the auto brightness is not quite on par with something like the Galaxy S7 in my testing at least. And just to mention this, when these phones came out, the Nexus 6P, the 64GB version, was going for 549 euros, while the iPhone was going for 749 and the Galaxy for 769. At the time of filming this, and according to GSM Arena, you can find a Nexus 6P for about 300, a Galaxy S7 Edge for about 450, and an iPhone 6s for about 500 euros. In conclusion, if I haven't forgotten anything, this phone is no slouch. You don't have to have the best processor, the latest processor to live. This phone can do anything I have been doing, no problem, no lagging besides the audio thing. The screen is amazing. I love how actually big it is, and it has some beautiful colors to it. I honestly like the bigger, larger form factor of the aluminum body of the 6P compared to the plastic smaller of the Nexus 5X that came out with it. And if you can find it and you like big form factor phones in a good condition, you should go for it. I truly recommend it if my opinion makes any difference to your purchases. So thanks for watching what seems to be like an endless video for me to edit. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions or feedback. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe for more colorful content. Click or press the box on the left to go to a random video on the channel, or click or press the box on the right to go to the last video I uploaded. See you in the next one.